Ladies and gentlemen, it is no secret. Chess is a very difficult game. But what if I told you we could make it a little bit easier? In this video, I'm going to show you traps with the white pieces and the black pieces to finish a game of chess in 10 moves or less. You can use these tricks and traps to climb up the rating ladder and try to hit some of your goals, or you can use these as party tricks to play against your friends or loved ones for them to think that you're absolutely a chess genius. Now, before we get into it, I just want to give you a little bit of a disclaimer. Some of these traps are definitely get-rich-quick schemes in terms of chess elo, meaning that if you don't land the trap, you're probably not going to have a great position, but I've also given you options where if you don't land the trap, you still have a completely playable position, and there's a lot of possibilities for you. The video is split into multiple parts. Here we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're gonna begin this journey of quickly defeating opponents, embarrassing them, and feeling good about ourselves with the white pieces. We are Gotham subscriber, obviously. You're not subscribed yet, go ahead and click it. Versus unsuspecting noob. And the fastest way to win with the white pieces is to get your queen out early. That's just the truth. It's called the wayward queen attack. And it begins with the king's pawn. Now, beginners are probably sitting there, or like intermediate players, like, hey, yeah, I know this. It's okay, we're just beginning. The point is that you need to get your queen and your bishop both out because together they can target this f7 square, the weak square, near the enemy king. It's the only thing, it's a pawn, it's the only thing protecting it is the king. Black will play e5, and now we can develop our queen out to h5. This is just the truth. I know it's very trivial. And I even have a video called Stopping Early Queen Attacks in Chess if you want to know how to deal with this, but this is truly the fastest way to win. Now, the absolute fastest way to win here is if black plays king to e7, which is just a horrible move, even though it's technically called the bomb cloud, and now white wins. You just take this pawn on e5, congratulations, it's checkmate. Most people will not be playing this with black, so that is not the real intro to the video. The real point of playing this queen is that you target the pawn, which is free, but also, if the pawn gets protected, you play bishop c4, and together you team up with the queen and the bishop on the f7 square, and you can deliver a 4-move checkmate or the scholar's mate. Okay, great. So we're like a minute, 2 minutes into this video, now you know how to win within 4 moves. But the other trap of the wayward queen attack, if you bring the queen out so early, is that some people are going to be like, aha, well, I'm very smart. I can just kick your queen away with my pawn. But now this move comes with an extra punch because not just winning a pawn with check, you now will also win the rook. So this is just very, very basic, bare bones beginner stuff, wayward queen attack. You can also... and just so you understand what that sequence might look like, that's the point. And now you can obviously, you might lose a pawn with check, but you're up a rook. You get out, develop the rest of your pieces. You're up a rook on move 3 or 4. I can't really do much better than that. Well, actually I can, because you're going to be checkmating people that fast. The wayward queen attack, if they know what they're doing, you get to a certain point. It's obviously not that good, but it is a good starting point. You can also be creative and begin with the bishop first. So you're like, oh, I'm not actually going for the wayward queen attack. And then you go for the wayward queen attack. You can either go to h5. I like h5 because it packs 2 punches. This just packs 1. So queen on f3 only attacks the f7 square. It doesn't attack anything else. But queen h5 is the way you can try to win in 4 moves. You can also try to win in 3 moves. But it's a little bit, it's a little suspicious, all right? Everything else in this video will be a little bit more reputable. Let's go see how you can win in 5 or 6 moves with white. For a win in 5 or 6 moves, as I mentioned, this is going to be a little bit more reputable, and you're still beginning with the king's pawn. In many ways, playing gambits with white is a little bit more fun because once you play e4, you can play a gambit against many of black's major responses. Now, one of those major responses is the move c6, trying to build for the center with d5. This is known as the Caro Kann defense. It's one of the most popular defenses on YouTube chess. It's one of the most popular defenses at beginner and intermediate level. I love it, so it's one of my favorite openings. And in general, what we're going to be doing is lining up this queen against the enemy king. Now, we're not going to do it right now. That's stupid. But what we are going to do is do it at some point. So, for example, you will play knight to c3. Black will play d5, and now you will put your queen on e2. The point is that if your opponent takes on e4, which is really the entire purpose of the Caro Kann, is like when you see this, you are going to take, and that's where the rest of your game will develop. They will take. You will take back with the knight, and you have a very, very sneaky threat set up against this king. Some people here will want to put a knight on f6, but they won't like it because you can take it, and now they can't take back with the pawn in front of their king. They would have to do this. So what some people will do here is they will play the move knight to d7 to try to play this move and trade so they can get a knight there as a replacement. And now you land the devastating checkmate blow, knight d6 mate. This is one of the most savage checkmates in all of chess. It's a 5-move smothered mate. The king has absolutely no breathing room and can't take because of the pin. Now, this particular move order it's a little bit rare, which is why I've included this trap in a 5 or 6 move way. The 6 move way is more common than the 5 move way, but you might get both. And the 6 move way is like this. You will play a 2 knights Caro Kann. So you will play knight f3 and knight c3. So this is another way that I recommend. Here there is pawn takes e4, obviously, right? This is the entire purpose, knight e4. And now, for example, if bishop f5 or knight f6, both targeting your knights, you will put the queen on e2, and now we see the point, right? Knight b d7, knight d6 mate. This is the 6-move version of this checkmate. There is also the 6-move version with bishop f5, queen to e2, knight d7, knight d6 mate. This I've also seen hundreds, if not thousands of times. I've seen this one more because people are like, well, why would I block my bishop, right? This is silly. Let me develop my bishop first, and when you protect, well, now I'm going to develop my knight because I'm so smart. Knight d6, checkmate. Queen on e2 in the Caro Kann wins in 5 or 6 moves, and obviously there are alternatives. Obviously, if you play queen e2 here, they might play d4, right? And the knight can rotate back, and we get a game of chess. But as I said in the introduction, the point of this video is not to make a 90-minute segment on here's a gambit and here's everything else that can happen instead of you getting that trap and winning quickly. The Caro Kann is a very potent trap, but I entrust you to fill in the gaps, okay? I'm kind of taking you there, but you're gonna have to fill in some of the gaps if you are unsuccessful in getting this trap. Okay, let's go to move 7. All right, this one is absolutely wonderful. I also don't know why I just said let's go to move 7. I should have said let's go to 7 moves, but whatever. That's the beauty of editing. I can make fun of my past self. So for this one, we're playing the Ponziani opening. We're still beginning with the king's pawn because it is the most aggressive way to play some gambits. e5 by black. We play knight f3, so now we're playing a little bit more standard, knight c6. This is a position that's been seen countless times. But here, rather than developing our bishop, like super grandmasters or playing the 4 knights or the Scotch, we play c3. Ponziani, not Ponziani, but P-O-N, Ponziani. And the point is that you want to put another pawn in the center of the board. So that is the purpose of the Ponziani opening. It stops things like bishop c5, because this is just great for white. You just want a big, healthy center with knight c3. And if you want to investigate the Ponziani on your own, you're more than welcome to do that. But I am here to show you a nasty trap. One of the main moves of the Ponziani is for black to play knight to f6. The other main line is pawn d5 immediately. This attacks the pawn in the center, but we're just going to ignore it. We're just going to continue with our Ponziani approach. We're 4 moves into the game. It's crazy because I just showed you an example of winning in literal checkmate in 4 moves, and here we're nowhere near that. So obviously black can take on d4. That's for you to investigate. There's some Ponziani ideas. You can check opening databases. But let's say black gobbles this pawn, which was their entire intention of moving the knight there, right? It's a free pawn. We are actually not going to take back. We are going to push to d5. This attacks the knight. Very logical move. Obviously, black can move the knight in a handful of different ways. So obviously, if black moves to the side of the board, we trap the knight with the move b4. That's just a very clean trapping of the knight. So this is actually a double layered trap. We play b4, the knight is completely stuck. It can't go here because it will be taken. But the knight will most likely rotate back this way, at which point we are ready to capture this center pawn. We've got a little knight trio here, and this is the devastating move, which is the most popular move on opening databases that play thousands of times, attacking our knight. The move d6 looks very reasonable because it looks like our knight has to leave, but this opens up the devastating move 7, bishop to b5, check. Now, opponent is in serious trouble because they can block the check on these 2 squares. If they block on d7, we smother them to death, and we are just picking up a queen. Kind of nice. However, if they block with the pawn, we take with our pawn. And now it's going to get even uglier, because if they take the knight, we have takes pawn check, and we are making a new queen. So we're gonna take a full rook and get a full queen out of nowhere. A completely winning position. If they take back on c6, then we take with a knight, and it's crushing. I mean, for example, knight takes, bishop takes, it's a triple fork, and believe it or not, the best move here is not to take the rook, because that would give up a full bishop. So instead, you come back and you take the knight. 3-0 versus 5-3. Which one is better, right? So 3-0, get a full knight. You are now up a pawn. You are now up a knight. And you are going to castle on the next move, or you're going to take that rook if they blunder it. And I know we're on move 12, but the winning knockout here happens on move 7 in the Ponziani with the move bishop to b5. So if you want to incorporate the Ponziani into your opening repertoire with 3c3, know this trap. If you don't get this trap, at least you still get a very big center, right? You can get your pieces behind those pawns. Big center always helps in a game of chess, but you have to know what to do against the two main lines, which are knight f6 and d5. But that's how you win a game of chess with the Ponziani in 7 moves. Let's go to move 8. This next one is one of the most powerful openings in all of chess, and actually my very first over-the-board tournament game that I played as a kid, I won with the fried liver trap. The fried liver also begins with the king's pawn, shocking, e5 by black, and knight f3, knight c6, but here you develop the bishop to c4. Now, you remember from the wayward queen section, this bishop is very powerful, targeting that weak square, and what we want to do here is we want to put the knight on g5 to attack the pawn along with the bishop. We can't do that because the queen blocks off that square, so that just doesn't work, which is why we need black to develop the knight to f6. It's very popular here for people to play the bishop to c5, at which point we can't do this, but there is a gambit here known as the Evans gambit, which is very strong. You can also go back to sort of playing in the style of the Ponziani, which is why you should watch this video chronologically to gain some ideas. But in this case, we're looking at knight f6, and now we go for knight g5, attacking the f7 square, trying to get a situation that looks like this, where we are just going to win big material. Knight f7 on its own is a big threat. The main line here for black does go pawn d5. There is also something known as the Traxler. I have videos on both of these. The Traxler is a counterattack to the fried liver. So if you're interested in all of that, you know where to find me. Just type in fried liver or Traxler, GothamChess. You'll find it. However, most beginners at this point will play d5, not knowing that it's the main move because they think that you have to block. And after pawn takes, they will just take back, which is just very natural. Because now they're like, well, I'm attacking this, and this is blocked and protected, so I'm good. But now you detonate, knight takes f7 anyway. And they're like, I thought I stopped that. Wait, what? Huh? Now it's move 7. You have to play queen check. This attacks the knight and the king. So now both of those pieces are under attack. And in this position, the best move for black is actually to come forward, bravely defending the knight in the middle of the board. That's very rare for beginners. Nobody wants to bring their king up. And even here, white can continue to apply pressure with a move like knight c3, right? The bishop is targeting the knight, 3 pieces targeting this, very scary position for black. My first tournament game went king g8. At which point, I took the knight, and it's checkmate. It's not exactly checkmate, because technically opponent can take, you take, and they can block, but it's mate. Their king is smothered. Every move follows everything else. So king g8 loses to bishop takes knight, and now you've won a chess game in 8 moves. Of course, they don't have to play king g8, which is why I'm here, right? At that point, you will just take back, and you will have a very big attack and be slightly better. But the point of this video is to give you the maximum in the minimum number of moves. So bishop takes d5, or you want to flex, queen takes d5, get a queen trade, and whatever they block with, it's a mate. It's an easy checkmate, and the game ends after 8 moves with the fried liver trap. But like I said, there is a little bit more to this than just playing knight g5 and winning on the spot. You might need to know the Traxler, you might need to fill in the gaps of your fried liver knowledge, but it's there. It's there for the taking, and I guarantee if you start playing this, you will catch a person or 2 or 10 and feel good about it. All right, let's go to the final trap of the section for the white pieces. And you've made it to the end. Now, winning in 10 moves with white it's actually a lot of moves already, so a lot of things have to be correct, right? You basically, black has to check every box and fall into every trap. A trap in 10 moves normally doesn't end in checkmate. You just have a big lead in material, and there are some traps that can get you there. However, I will show you a checkmate in 10 moves. This time, we are not starting with the king's pawn. We are starting with the English opening. Now, again, if you play the English, there's a low chance that you play into this trap because as a beginner and intermediate player, people might be doing God knows what. However, a 2700 rated Grandmaster beat a 2700 rated Grandmaster in this trap, so I have to show it. Black will respond with e5, principled move into the center of the board. You both develop queenside knights, right? The queen's knight. White now develops the next knight to f3, and black will play g6, looking for a fianchetto of the bishop on the g7 square. You will attack the center. That is the entire purpose. We've seen this actually in a lot of those king's pawn positions, that the queen's pawn is a helper to open up the board. Black takes the pawn because, well, if they don't, I mean, we push or we take. But now we don't take back. We jump into the middle with knight d5. The point of this move is to control some squares. Actually, a very similar checkmate to the Caro Kann checkmate. Knight to f6, right? You just saw that with the Caro Kann. Slightly different situation, but a knight smothers the king to death. Obviously, that's not going to happen. If it does, congrats. Bishop g7. And now white teams up with this knight and goes bishop g5, attacking the queen. The queen is in a little bit of a bad spot. Queen can't move. Queen's got to have something block. Knight e7 seems like a natural move. However, now we uncork a savage combination that ends the game by move 10. At this point, it looks like all of black's defenses are fine, but we play knight takes pawn. Now, to the untrained eye, that just doesn't make any sense because two pieces cover that, whereas we only have one. However, if black takes with the knight, they remove the defender of this knight, and we smother the queen to death. The queen dies. Queen's dead. Bishop takes, that's it. So obviously black won't do that. Black is going to take back with this bishop. Now we have a weird situation because it's not really clear what we've accomplished here. Well, that's why it's a trap, because sometimes traps are not obvious at all. We take the bishop. You go, what? What am I missing? Well, if you're giving up a queen, you're either losing a queen because you're trash, which happens, I've been there, or you're getting something back for the queen that's worth more, which means a queen and a bonus, or you're getting the head of the king. You're going to decapitate him. Parents, you might have to explain that word to your children. You might have to lie to them. A little bit gory. Here's the point. Knight f6 check. King has to move. Bishop h6, check, and mate. It's move 10. You've sacrificed the queen, and you just checkmated your opponent. If you win a game like chess like this, you might as well uninstall everything. It does not get any better than this. You have just won a game of chess in 10 moves. Now, the Grandmaster at hand actually didn't fall for the entire trap, but he resigned after castling and getting hit with this check. And he resigned because he's going to lose the game in the next couple of moves anyway. But yeah, this trap is a little bit more rare. But this whole idea of losing a pawn in the center and then putting a knight in the middle can also happen from a king's pawn opening. I'm going to give you a little bonus here. This is called the Belgrade Gambit, capital of Serbia. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6. Notice the position is a little bit different. 4 knights. D4 takes knight D5. If you want to go investigate the Belgrade Gambit, it is very interesting, but there aren't immediate victories in it, which is why it's not included in this video. But that's why you're here, right? Bonus nuggets of information. And that is, in a nutshell, folks, how you can win games of chess with relatively reputable, not garbage gambits between 4 and 10 moves with white pieces. Let's go see how you can win with black. Okay, folks, so winning with black in many ways is just as fun and in a totally different way than winning with white, because with black, you see your opponent's first move and then you go, oh, now I can send this game in a direction that I want. Because normally with white, you're kind of the person instigating the action. So the first thing I want to show you is a 4-5, you can really classify this as many different kinds of moves, gambit, but it's called the Blackburn Shilling. Just as your first trap with the white pieces, it's not super reputable, but if you get it, you're going to feel like an absolute gangster. So the opponent begins with the move e4, and you play e5. It's kind of difficult to push the pace with black early, especially if you're going to get hit with a wayward queen attack. You kind of have to know what you're doing. Watch my video how to stop early queen attacks in chess. But let's say you get a normal position with bishop to c4. Okay, we've been here before. And you want to play knight f6 or bishop c5. Hold on. The Blackburn Shilling Gambit begins with the move knight to d4. So sacrificing development for the sake of a little bit of a trap. Now, obviously, if white takes your knight, then you just trade and you just have to develop. Your bishop will come out, your knight will come out, you'll play d6, so you don't block in your bishop, bishop first, then pawn, then chess has to get played. But if you notice, we put our knight in the middle because we're giving up this pawn. I mean, an advanced beginner will see that. Hopefully. They're going to be like, oh, how dumb. Knight takes pawn, look at that. And I'm getting that good old-fashioned fried liver style. Knight takes f7 is coming. So knight takes e5 is already our opponent falling into the trap. Knight takes e5 is not a good move. It doesn't lose yet, but it probably will. Now the point is, our queen can go to g5. This attacks the pawn and the knight. This is already borderline devastating for white. The computer obviously knows the best moves. The computer says you can take with check, but no one's going to do that because they've just moved their knight. They see that this move attacks the knight. They will continue down the rabbit hole of gobbling and forking us and thinking that we are the dumbest person on earth. And they might be right, but at least not in chess. Now we demonstrate the second purpose of the queen on this square. It's to go down here and take the rook. This is already very bad. Very, very bad. So obviously taking here is terrible. You're going to take, and the knight has no way out. So most people here will go, oh, well, this is simple. I just slide my rook over to f1. Now, the reason I'm classifying this as a 4 or 5 move trap rather than a 6 or 7 move trap is because the evaluation of this position is -10. So the fact that you've even made it this far after 5 moves means you're completely winning. Now you just got to finish the job, just like in the Ponziani trap with white. Did you watch that part of the video? After rook f1, we gobble the pawn on e4 with check. Most people here will not want to play queen e2 and lose their queen. That seems really bad. So they will block with the bishop thinking the worst is over. And that is when they will suffer knight f3, check, mate. It's over. They lose. Game is over. This knight just couldn't even gobble the rook, and white gets smothered. And we've seen this a lot in this video, this kind of smothering with the queen and the knight. Very nasty combination. Some might compare it to a James Harden and Joel Embiid. I don't know who's the knight and the queen in that situation, but that's my best reference. Together they're unstoppable because they combine all the powers. You know, Kobe and Shaq. So this trap is just it's a little bit terrible in the sense that if white doesn't take on e5 and just plays kind of normal moves, this is a bit of a hope trap, but so is the wayward queen attack. So all of these parts, you know, winning in chess in 4 or 5 moves is borderline impossible unless the opponent completely self-destructs. Finds the nearest window, jumps out of it, not from a fatal height, all right? I would never want to allude to something like that, but knight d4 with queen g5, Blackburn shilling is very potent. Let's go to the more reputable ones. So this next gambit has the name Portuguese or Icelandic gambit because actually white decides which one we're going to go into. This one I like because against the king's pawn, you don't need to respond with symmetry and hope that your opponent will play something that will fall into a gambit. Actually, you play the queen's pawn. So you strike in the middle first. And obviously, many people are going to take this pawn because it's there for the taking. And now they're playing on your terms. Here, you can enter the Scandinavian defense with queen takes pawn, but I invite you to play knight f6. Knight f6 delays the recapture of the pawn, and it can lead to either the Portuguese or Icelandic gambits. Obviously, white doesn't have to hang on to this. White can play knight f3. White can play bishop c4, which doesn't hang on to that pawn because, right, it's just a fair trade. In which case, you have to play chess. So in that case, you might take back with the knight. You might develop your bishop. You're inviting them to play into a gambit. Now, if they try to hang on to this pawn with a second pawn, now we enter gambit territory by trading like this. Should the opponent engage with us and allow us to get this lead in development, we now have a very quick plan of attack. Just like in that Caro Kann section, 15 minutes ago, I don't know how long ago it was, we want to quickly swarm opponent and castle queenside. So here, my favorite trap is when white puts 2 pawns in the center. All right, this is move 5. We give a check, right? Give a check, and we'd like to play queen e7, knight c6, get our king out of the middle, go, 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 go. Opponent might block with the knight, at which point we apply some pressure with knight e4, and we are already almost winning. Almost. For example, the move bishop d2 here, blocking this attack, is met with queen takes pawn, because the entire purpose of the queen here is to guard the center like this. So bishop d2, queen takes d4, and slightly different than the other gambits in this video, we're not up a queen, we're not checkmating, but we might. For example, knight to f3, queen f2 is mate. I've caught actually some very strong people like this before. Knight e4 is very, very potent. Swarming the king here is just super, super strong. Just in case anybody's confused, queen a4 doesn't win a piece. I sometimes get comments about this. Knight c6 just defends both, and the attack doesn't stop. Knight e4 is extremely strong. There are obviously different things that can happen, like bishop d2, but like I told you, the point is to take, play queen e7, line up an attack on this king, knight c6, and long castles. Actually, one of my courses that I have on my website, link is in the description, is called the Gambits Repertoire for Black, and the Portuguese gambit is in it. I absolutely adore this gambit, and on move 7, 6, 7, 8, in that range, you can already have a position that's completely crushing. For example, if the opponent, instead of blocking like this, plays queen d3, you have the beautiful idea of bishop f5, lining up very nasty intentions against this queen. You can get your king out of the center, and you're already threatening things like this, attacking the queen, attacking the rook, and you're just crushing. It's 8-9 moves, but it's totally, totally winning for black. So e4, d5, with the intention to play knight f6 and enter the Icelandic or the Portuguese gambits, are very nice ways to get quickly winning positions. Now, the only reason that I'm a little hesitant to include this, I was a little hesitant to include this in the video, is that there's a lot of flexibility. Like, for example, white can play many, many things, and so you have to kind of fill in the gaps of your knowledge. But if you get a full Portuguese or Icelandic gambit on the board, oh, it's game over. I mean, it's honestly just game over. So consider investigating this, adding it to your toolbox. I like the fact that it's very forcing against e4. Trust me, go investigate. You'll have a great time. All right, let's keep going. One of the most savage traps in the world of chess is called the Englund Gambit trap. The Englund Gambit is a fan favorite at beginner and early intermediate levels because in this day and age when chess information is widely available and you can study your games instantly, traps don't always work a lot. And it begins with the queen's pawn, and black responds with e5. So again, this sort of forcing method of play, not engaging in symmetry, but trying to get the opponent to take you right away. At this point, black will play knight c6, trying to win the pawn back with the knight, and white will play knight f3. Again, there is a lot of flexibility when you play with the black pieces. White can really do a lot of things. So I'm going to show you the most kind of forcing trap that can happen, and then you have to fill in the gaps as you play. Here you play queen e7. Queen e7, just like we've seen combining queen and knight in early gambit play, wants to take this pawn, and right, that would be nice, but also there is the idea to wander off over here to give a check to the king. So bishop f4 protects this pawn, but allows us to hit three things at once. We only play this move if the bishop has gone over here. I have a video on the Englund Gambit if you want to learn some more. You obviously don't play queen b4 if it's not a check, right? That doesn't make any sense. The queen is here to take this pawn. So in response to this, we give a check. Smart player with white here will back up the bishop because they don't want to lose it. For example, that's a really nice way to lose a full piece. So they go here, and we continue down to attack the rook. The best move here for white, and if you want to know more about the Englund Gambit, go watch a video with knight to c3. But many people here will play bishop c3. That's a very natural move. You just move the bishop multiple times. You might as well move it one more time, and you attack the queen, and you defend your rook, right? But now black steps on the gas even harder and plays bishop b4. Uh-oh. This is an important move to remember. You cannot lose your queen because you pin the bishop to the king. If there's this, the rook is in trouble, knight is coming into c2, so obviously white doesn't want that, and white instead will defend the bishop with the queen. Okay, white is out of danger, right? No. You take. And we are about to have something really, really bad happen. If knight takes bishop, queen takes rook. However, if queen takes bishop, it's mate. It's a mate. The game is over. 8 moves. And you win by checkmate. I have had some students lose heartbreaking games to something like this, and they come out crying of their tournaments. And we used to call it the London poison, because if you're going up against someone who's going to play d4, there's a very high chance as a beginner they're going to play a London. This stops the London, because if they go here, you just take a full bishop. You might get that. But the other point is that you completely start forcing the action on your own. Now, is the Englund Gambit a forced win for black? No. If white knows what they're doing, they will get an advantage according to the computer, but maybe you have fun anyway. You don't care what the computer says. You're here to play chess for fun. You get this pawn back, your queen's in the middle, quick development. Again, just as everything else in this video, you can't just watch a 3-4 minute segment and go, I have my permanent opening weapon. No, you got to fill in the gaps. The Englund Gambit wins by checkmate in 8 moves if your opponent falls for the trap. If not, you have to play chess. Let's go to the last 2. For our 9-move trap, we're beginning once again with the queen spawn, so you actually have a choice. Here you can play a little bit more professionally with the move d5. d4, d5 is an extremely normal way to start the game. This one is also in my Black Gambits repertoire. Again, I didn't make this video with the intention to kind of give you paid content pushes, but what I'm saying when I say that is that some of the stuff in this video, very, very basic. 4-move checkmate, 4-5-move trap with black. Not very good from the learning chess in a long-term standpoint, but this trap, this gambit, and the Portuguese gambit, I literally put in a paid course because they're actually legitimate. You don't just have to win fast or your position is terrible. So the Albin is after the queen's gambit, d4, d5, c4, and now you respond with not e6, which is the queen's gambit declined, but you play e5. So you are striking back in the middle of the board, right? And I love the Albin because I play it in blitz all the time, and even if I don't win quickly, I get great attacking positions. The point is that if white takes your pawn, you shove this into the middle of the board. And the point is that now developing is a little bit difficult for white. Knight c3 is impossible. Knight f3 is met with knight c6. You swarm with the bishops. Oftentimes you will get your queen out of the way and quickly castle. That's the point of a gambit at the end of the day. However, many unsuspecting folks will go, ugh, that pawn is really annoying. I want to get rid of it immediately with the move e3. And actually, that move doesn't look that bad at all. Because again, if you take, you lose your right to castle. Then I take back the pawn with my bishop, and I'm doing very well. However, if white plays e3, you smash them with a check. They cannot block with the knight, so most of them will block with the bishop. At which point, you do take the pawn. So you see now that the queens don't see each other, right? The bishop looks like he can take a bishop for free. Now, if they double their pawns and they get themselves into this ugly situation, you can trade bishops, finish development, and in the long run, you'll eat these pawns like Pac-Man, right? However, they might take your bishop for free. Now you continue gobbling. Pawn takes f2, comes with check. This is already a very dire situation for white, because if they take the pawn, the queen takes the queen. Don't forget, that is just a full queen. Queen takes queen across the board. So many people here with white will lose the queen like that, but some of them will be creative. They'll be like, oh my god, wait a minute, this is the only move that guards my queen. Thankfully, I'm safe. And here you uncork pure savagery. You must remember this move. You must remember to not have auto queen promotion on. You take the knight. You take the knight, but you make a knight. Yes, it has to be check. Why? Because if you make a queen, I take your queen with check, then I take your other queen, you lose both queens in 2 moves. But if you make a knight, it is check, and when I take, now the bishop comes and white gets x-rayed. Bishop g4, the king goes, and on your 9th move, you take the queen, and you're completely winning. You might go on to lose this game. I don't know how impressive of a chess player you are, but I got you there in 9 moves. All right, you have a queen up position. I can't do much better than that. Well, actually, I can. You can checkmate in 8 moves in the Englund Gambit. But the Albin is so brutal. This is an incredible trap. And just to instant replay, you cannot do this first because the knight can block. That is the whole point. You have to take that knight. You have to take it or the knight blocks and the whole trap doesn't work. So this is super common, this Lasker trap, named after Lasker, obviously, the famous chess player. Yeah, I mean, what more to say? Like, can you imagine a trap where you promote to a knight on move 6 or 7 with check, and then bring your bishop out and win the? I mean, come on, that's the end of the story. There's many times in this video that you can just do basically a walk-off. You land the trap, that's it. You just move on with your life. You never play a game of chess again. I love the Albin counter gambit trap. I also love the Albin even if you don't land this trap. I love this opening. Time for our final trap of the video. For the final way to win quickly in chess with the black pieces, I want to shout out my good friend, International Master Eric Rosen. He's also got a YouTube channel, in case you don't know. I don't know if these videos hit the algorithm and people who have never watched chess are watching it, but hello, Eric Rosen. Look him up after this video. He popularized the Stafford Gambit at all levels. And the Stafford Gambit is when white plays e4, black plays e5, knight f3, and now not knight c6, but rather copycat, knight f6. Basically saying you can take my pawn. And this is something known as the Petrov defense, but knight c6. Now we are playing the Stafford Gambit. When the Stafford Gambit reaches its initial position, you take with the pawn that opens the queen and the bishop. So we've seen this already before. We want both bishops open, we want the queen open because they're the most powerful attacking pieces. Now, there are many variations of the Stafford Gambit, so once again, if you are interested in this gambit and you want to investigate it, I just told you who to go look at for the full details. But this is the way you win in 10 moves. White will see that this pawn is under attack and will protect it. Relatively standard, right? You will move your bishop to the most active square that you can, targeting that weak king square. At this point, many players with the white pieces will want to castle, which is what you're taught as a beginner. So they will move their bishop, and then they will castle. Bishop e2. Now, there are other moves here, which is why I just told you, you got to go investigate on your own. You, at this point, would like to move your knight to g4. We've seen this concept, this kind of knight infiltration, but in this case, it's covered by two pieces. So what do? Lock in access to that square with knight to g4. You'd like to go there so you can do some kind of fried liver damaging to the opponent. Opponent will castle. Self-explanatory, right? At that point, knight g4. Opponent plays h3, asking you very politely to move your knight. If you take on f2 now, then after takes, where are all of your pieces? That is not the point. The point is not to take on f2. This is the point. Queen d6. You want to go deliver checkmate. If the opponent takes your knight, then you take, and mate is unstoppable. That's it. They can't stop it. They can delay it, but they cannot stop it. They can play, for example, e5, you just take it. They can play g3, you take it. It's mate. The bishop pins the pawn to the king. It can't take, and the rook and the queen smash the king. There are other ways to lose like this in 10 moves. That was 10 moves. I don't know if you were counting, but there is also this way to lose. They could play g3 like this, and once again, you take king h1, and it's mate on move 10. You win in 10 moves with the black pieces. You shout out the Stafford Gambit, dab on the opponent or something that's less cringe, and then you leave. And you retire from the game of chess, right off into the sunset, and you feel good about yourself. That is how you win a game of chess in 10 moves with an opening that's actually quite potent and quite common at many, many levels, the Stafford Gambit. Hey, it's full screen Gotham again. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you can use some of these tips and tricks with the white pieces and the black pieces to get some quick wins, feel good about yourself, and temporarily feel that chess isn't just the absolute worst and a ton of work and demoralizing at times. I envision you playing against someone you know and saying that you don't actually play a whole lot of chess, and then bam, you win the game in 5 moves and they think you're just the smartest person on earth. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Get out of here.